Welcome into the Ohio State Football Report by Chat Sports. My name is Stone Shields, filling in for Tom Downey here on today's show. And coming up on today's show, there is a particular recruiting update that I want to get to as it pertains to the Ohio State Buckeyes. Also, ESPN recently dropped an article, and I think there's some perhaps a little bit of disrespect towards the defending national champion Ohio State Buckeyes. That is coming up on today's show. By the way, doing some solo producing here on today's video, so if you see me look down, whatever the case may be, just trying to do multiple things here at once as we progress through today's show. But before we get into today's show, do want to invite you guys to hit that subscribe button if you have not done so already at youtube.com/GoBucks. As you can see, we are rapidly approaching 10,500 subscribers here at the channel, and I think we can get there on this video alone. As you can see, only need 36 more subs in order for that to happen. We will have you covered all off-season long, plenty of recruiting stuff to continue to talk about here at the Ohio State Football Report, so we will have that. We also will have watch parties for you once the games start in the 2025 season. Should be really exciting. Obviously, got a new quarterback at the helm for Ryan Day. So don't miss out on any of our coverage here at the Ohio State Football Report. Hit that sub button for me right now, youtube.com/GoBucks. All right, so the recruiting update that I wanted to get into here on today's show is Xavier Griffin, and he's one of the top players in the 2026 class. And obviously, if you're the Ohio State Buckeyes, your eye should always be on those top players. And he was committed to USC and recently decommitted from USC on Wednesday. And there's several schools now that are in the mix for Xavier Griffin, and Ohio State certainly is one of those schools to keep an eye on. He was a top target for the Buckeyes before committing to USC, and now that he is decommitted, I think he goes right back to the top of those boards for Ohio State. I think you're going to see James Laurinaitis and company, of course, linebacker coach for the Buckeyes, really go after Griffin hard, as he does have an official visit scheduled with the Buckeyes. We'll talk about that a little bit more in depth in a second, but do want to get to the pin comment of today's show. Are you excited about recruiting season? The Buckeyes obviously have, I believe, 13 commits in the 2026 class right now. That number obviously is going to continue to grow. It's also going to continue to get a lot more real, right, when you start to see pen go to paper for some of these commits, and we really can start to welcome them in to the Ohio State football community. But if you are hyped about recruiting season, type me for me in the comments of today's show. And if that ad comes here on YouTube, that's totally fine. You can ignore it, take advantage of it. Get down in the comments. Let us know what you think. So as I mentioned, Griffin, of course, was committed to USC, and I did just want to bring this up. It seems like he's really handling this the best way possible as far as his decommitment goes. Obviously, recruiting is very tricky for these athletes and their families, and, of course, for the programs in which that are recruiting them. This is what Griffin said. He said, "My commitment has been a question for a few months now, but the hard decision has come within the last 2 weeks. I wanted to still be able to enjoy my process and go on my official visits, but respectful of USC at the same time. So this happened after a lot of talking with my mom and praying." Thought that was pretty well said there by Xavier Griffin. But he is one of the best players in this 2026 class. As you can see there, he is a 5-star. The Buckeyes, of course, already have 2 5-stars signed in their 2026 class. When you're talking about Chris Henry Jr. and you're talking about Blaine Bradford there at that safety position, overall he is the 22nd ranked player in that class per the 247 Sports Composite rankings. The number 2 linebacker and the number 2 player in the state of Georgia. The Buckeyes really at this point only have one linebacker in that 26 class. C.J. Santa, of course, is that guy. Simeon Caldwell is ranked as a linebacker, but I think the Buckeyes have envisions of him playing that safety position for Ohio State. Let's talk about these official visits that Griffin's got coming up. May 30th, really only a couple of weeks away here, about 2 weeks away. He will be in Columbus visiting with the Ohio State Buckeyes. Really awesome stuff there by James Laurinaitis, getting him to land that official visits. He will also be taking official visits to Alabama, Texas, and Florida State. There is a lot of buzz around Alabama here at this point. I'm not exactly sure they're the front runner by any means, but I would guess his top 2 really are Ohio State and Alabama right now. Doesn't obviously have USC on this list. There's always a chance he could go and commit back to the Trojans. But I think Ohio State's in a good spot here. They're trying to get that 3rd 5-star commitment. And I think Xavier Griffin certainly is at the top of their priority list. Going to be a name to monitor here over the course of the next couple of months. Second part of today's show here, as I mentioned at the top, ESPN ranked the offseason for all Power 4 programs. They also ranked it for Notre Dame as well. And they had Ohio State as the 5th best offseason, not in college football, but in the Big Ten, behind several of those other Big Ten schools, which I thought was interesting. Really, my biggest takeaway is if you're ranking Ohio State, and you're talking about Ohio State football within the Big Ten Conference, I don't think really there's any category where they should be number 5, but that's how ESPN did it. We'll kind of break down exactly some of the things that ESPN said in that article, but I want you guys to grade Ohio State's offseason for me right now in the comment section. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know. This is a question that we ask a lot on our NFL channels, but it feels appropriate to be asking this kind of question now as well because the landscape of college football is starting to get more and more like the NFL when you're talking about the transfer portal and you're talking about NIL, of course, as well. I think Ohio State did a pretty good job this offseason considering all the turnover that they had after winning the national title. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section, A, B, C, D, or F. So here are some key additions for Ohio State from a personnel perspective. These 3 players, they obviously got some other guys in the portal as well, but I think these 3 guys right here are going to be starters for you. Max Clare, tight end out of Purdue. He is going to be one of the best tight ends in the country. I am really excited about him coming in and perhaps having a big impact for Ohio State here in this first season. Obviously, most recently in that spring transfer portal window, you got Bo Atkinson, who was one of North Carolina's best players. You were able to take him away from Coach Bill Belichick year 1. That's a massive get for Ohio State. And then Ethan Onianwa, the offensive tackle out of Rice. That is a big get as well. He looks like a shoe-in starter for Ohio State at this point along the offensive line, whether it be left tackle, right tackle. Not exactly quite sure yet on where he's going to play. Austin Servell looks like he might be a starter at one of those tackle positions as well. But Oniamo is going to start. Those are 3 pretty big gets for you if you are the Ohio State Buckeyes. I have a little bit more to say on that in a second, but do want to get to this quote here from Bill Connolly of ESPN because he was one of the writers that had to write this stuff for ESPN in this piece. He said, the Buckeyes might start the year as a justifiable preseason number 1, but that doesn't mean they've made major offseason upgrades. Ryan Day will start as title defense with infinitely fewer proven coordinators, a new quarterback, and a new defensive line. Look, all these things are true, but you have to understand that when you win a national title, a change happens. Now, I hate to put Ryan Day in the same conversation as Nick Saban. That feels a little disrespectful to Nick Saban here at this point, but you saw it with Saban, right? He was winning all these national titles, and all his coaches were leaving. And what did he do? He continued to win. Is Ryan Day going to be able to do that? And I get some people have some questions, with the OC hire and with the DC hire. Starting with the DC side at first, with Matt Patricia, obviously a proven guy in the NFL, hasn't done this college stuff. So it's kind of a risk for Ryan Day, but he's a guy that has coached a lot of football and has won a lot of football games and has won world championships. Ryan Day's banking on him being able to make that jump back down to college and still be able to coach at a really high level. And then Brian Hartline, is he Chip Kelly? No, right? He's absolutely not Chip Kelly. I think Chip Kelly coming to Ohio State was really just a massive blessing. And I don't know if they win the national title without Chip Kelly. So to expect Brian Hartline to come in and be like Chip Kelly, that would be unfair to Brian Hartline. But Hartline's a guy that's widely regarded as the best wide receiver coach in the country, certainly from a recruiting standpoint. And I think a lot of people in the Ohio State community really believe that he deserved a shot to be this OC. So is it going to be, a smooth process necessarily? Maybe not. There's going to be some bumps in the road, but I have no issues with him promoting from within and getting Brian Hartline. So I don't think they really should, or Day and Ohio State should really be knocked too much for those hires. But I think my biggest takeaway is this. When you're talking about grading Ohio State here, we talked about the 3 guys that are coming in from the portal that are going to be starters for you. So that, to me, is an A grade in itself right there. But in this landscape of college football now, it's not just who you bring in. It's who you can make stay with your program. And I think Ryan Day did a tremendous job. Ohio State did a tremendous job with that. In my opinion, you got the 2 best players in the country coming back, Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith, and I'm sure they were getting thrown a ton of money from other schools across the country during, kind of this offseason after you won the national title. And the fact that you got those 2 guys coming back, I think that is an A in its own right as far as your offseason goes. So I did think it was very interesting that ESPN had Ohio State as the 5th best offseason in the Big Ten, and some of the schools that were ahead of them were Indiana and Illinois, and that's just a little bit head-scratching to me. You want to put Penn State, Oregon ahead of them, fine, but I think Ohio State deserves a little bit more love than 5th